For today's session, we want to focus specifically on communication. Now, it was a gentleman by the name of Paul Watts Lorick who said, one cannot not communicate. What it simply means is that every behavior is a form of communication. And because behavior in itself, it does not have what we call a counterpart, which means that there's no anti or anti behavior, it is impossible for us as human beings not to communicate with each other. Even if we refer to using silence, it is a form of nonverbal communication, and we may have come across a saying that silence is deafening. So, as we continue to live and to work together as team members, we want to keep in mind that the better we become at communicating with each other and to each other, it really helps to improve the overall relationship within that organization and or business. We would have heard when it comes to marriages that communication is the key to that healthy relationship. We want to take that just beyond that concept of marriage and put it that communication is the key to any relationship, whether it is professional and or personal. What our this communication seminar does, it allows you as the individual to really understand how you can identify your communication style, your preferred communication style. It helps you to understand how you can adapt to other persons around you. What it also teaches us is that as individuals, as human beings, we are just different. Nobody's weird. It's not that something is wrong with the other person, it's that we are just different. DISC, DISC, it's an acronym that we use that the D's are the dominant style, the I's are the influencing style, the S, they're the steady or stable style, and the C, they're the conscientious, more detail oriented style. In our next session, I will go a bit more into detail about describing each of those four different styles. Now, as we're doing it today, just to understand a bit of a foundation behind looking at our observable behavior. In working with the DISC program, it is not focused on personality types. It is focused on observable behavior that is happening now, there and then, how you can see the person acting at that point in time. It is our assessment of the current observable behavior that allows us to understand how are we going to be communicating with that individual now. Observable behavior represents the things that we are currently doing. It can be an action we're taking, it could be our tone of voice, it could be the movements that we're currently making at this point in time. So, for example, if I am to hold my head, I'm going to be shaking it. Persons out there might come up with many different avenues with my observable behavior. Some persons may indicate, oh, he has a headache. Some persons may say he's stressed. Some persons might say that he's thinking. So it allows us to move away from those assumptions instead of just assuming the person's mood, and we start looking at their mode of operation. Very important in understanding behavior. Now, when persons are communicating, they usually communicate on three channels, and it's up to us as individuals to pick up on those three channels. We have the visual, the vocal, and of course, the verbal. The visual will look at your body language that the person is using that aids and assists in communication. We have the vocal, which speaks to your voice and the tone in which you're speaking in that can actually change the meaning of what you say depending on how you say it. And of course, we have the verbal, which are the actual word or the words that the person would have said. So, for example, if we were to have this session just transcribed on a document and you give it to an individual, all they will have from this session are just the words. They wouldn't have the voice, the tone, the inflections. They would just have the actual words. So it is very important to understand those three channels of communication and pay attention when the person is speaking to you. In that way, you're able to assess the information adequately and determine if there's any dissonance between what is being spoken versus how the person is actually demonstrating their willingness to do or not to do something. So we will share more with you in our next session on the four areas: the dominant, influential, steady, and conscientious style, so that you can understand more about this concept. So for those persons who would like to learn more about that session and to be involved in our training, I would encourage you to get registered for our this communication training. It is on this Thursday from 1 to 4 p.m. You can call our office 223-5583, and one of our team members will be more than willing to take you through the registration process.